this one very common fear, maybe the topper that is the hurdle getting in the way of you moving into your sober lifestyle. So, if you are sober curious, if you are sober ready, perhaps, hang out with me on this episode of the Conscious Coffee Break, where we're going to talk about a very common fear, and it's all about losing your identity. Hey there, Jennifer Sack here, and I'm here to help you have more clarity, more courage, more confidence in moving into your sober lifestyle by taking the fear out of the transition. There is a lot that goes down when we first get the inkling that perhaps it's time to get sober. Maybe we're a little curious about it, or when we maybe have tried several times and it hasn't stuck, hasn't landed yet, and we're like, what is wrong with me? What is going on? Why can't I stick with this? You're ready for it, you feel ready, but it's not sticking. I've been there. I've been there. I went around on that merry-go-round for many years before it finally landed. And as I said in a previous episode, it really all comes down to a final choice. Now, that feels very heavy. Today, we're actually going to focus on one of the major fears. One of the major fears comes down to your identity, and it really comes down to how tightly you cling to the identity that you have as the person that you are when you are participating in your substance of choice. There are a lot of ways that we show up differently than we do when we're sober. And we may not know that. You may not know that if you haven't been sober for a long time, or it may be the very thing that you run from in those moments when you are sober and you're searching for the next high, the next drink, the what have you, because you're a little uncomfortable in that space because it's not the normal identity that you like to put on. It's not what people expect from you. So it makes you uncomfortable. So I'm going to make you very aware. I'm all about clarity here because the more you can be aware of what the transition entails when you go into your sober lifestyle and what your fears are so that you can name them, face them, and move through them, I think the more equipped you become to move through that confidently. And a lot of this comes down to you being very clingy to the identity that you house. Sometimes we are different ways. Most times we are different ways under the influence. Sometimes we are fun, a lot more talkative, and we're afraid we're going to be boring. We're going to be quiet if we take that away. Maybe we've noticed that. And so we're like aware. We're like, no, when I don't have that, I become kind of an introvert, a little bit of a hermit. I'm a little more reserved. People don't find me as entertaining. That's a lot of you, one, trying to be something that you're not, and perhaps maybe to people please, maybe to give people what you think they want or expect from you when you show up to their space. So that's some internal work that you need to deal with because you honestly should be 100% transparent as the person that you are sober because that is who you truly are. And if that's not their cup of tea, if that's not high vibing enough, or that's not really what they're wanting from you, that's their problem. The goal is to not put on a mask and put on a persona for everybody else. The goal, I believe, is to be able to be 100% yourself. And when you strip away all the influences and the substances, and you see that for what it is, and you embrace that rather than deny yourself for who you are, judge yourself for who you are, then you're able to show up and it takes a hell of a lot less energy because you don't have to put on any facade. You're not spending energy sort of standing outside of yourself, watching yourself and making sure you're mirroring back to people what they are expecting from you. And whether that's you being the life of the party, perhaps maybe you're always the easygoing person that goes with the flow. Suddenly, you take away substances or influences of the substance of choice that you use, you might no longer be very easygoing because suddenly you're not too concerned with people pleasing. You actually are in touch with what it is that you like or prefer or stand for, what your standards are, and you have a voice now. You have authority. This might take people by surprise. It's not the version of you that they're used to. There might be some rub from them. There might be some rub from you because you're not used to maybe asserting yourself. But I guarantee when you get sober, your tolerance for bullshit goes way down. And you just kind of show up as is. Once you get comfortable enough with yourself of like, this is how I am, this is how I feel, um, take it or leave it, your tolerance for bullshit goes way down. Maybe you're not so easygoing, but you're honest. You're not boring by any means. Maybe you're more reserved. Maybe you are more quiet. Maybe you're not the life of the party anymore. You might still be. It's just your nature to be that way. But for some people, they find that they're not, and they're kind of afraid of that. They're afraid of, like, well, I'm going to be the Debbie Downer, the wet blanket. People expect this sort of energy from me. Again, that's people pleasing. Throw that out the window. We're not doing that anymore. Or else you just stay stuck in the cycle. Is that what you want to do? No, we're not people pleasing. So take away that element. So what? So what if you're someone who stands back now and observes and actually listens? Because a lot of being under the influence and being that party, that mode, that like fun mode, that sort of like entertainer mode, you're not listening. You're entertaining. You're performing. You're not really being yourself and you're not connected to what's really going on half the time. So when you get sober and you almost have a bird's eye view of everything, a deeper perspective. You're able to see things for what they are and what's really going on. You might stand back, you might watch, you might think a little more before you speak. I guarantee you will. What your input is in a conversation with others is going to be a lot more thoughtful. It's something funny that happened. I realized once I was sober, when I was having conversations with people who were drunk or using whatever, I no longer was interested in that conversation because I felt like it was not reciprocal. We were not on the same level. It was basically surface value. They weren't hearing anything I said. They were repeating themselves endlessly. It was just very topical and of no value. And it wasn't something that I valued any longer. So it was kind of one of those rules I had like after somebody has X amount of drinks, I'm probably not going to have a lot of conversation with them anymore. There's no value there for me. Think about that. Now flip that around. Do you want to be the person that's not adding value because you're under the influence? No. You want to be the person that is stable, that's grounded, that has valuable input, that's listening, that's present, that's able to take in information coherently, have a good conversation, an enjoyable time. That's way more enjoyable. There's way more value in that. So we often think of this as a downside of, well, I won't be the life of the party won't be as fun. Perhaps, but was that ever really fun? Or were you maybe thinking you were the entertainer, but you were actually the joke? It's possible. So I think it's very important. I don't know if you're a 90s kid like I was, you might remember the episode of Friends with Fun Bobby. Monica dates this guy who's like, everybody calls him Fun Bobby. He's amazing. And then he stops drinking and he's like super boring and depressed and like, wah, wah. She starts drinking to try and be entertained around him. I think we get this stuck in our head that like, I'm going to be just an undesirable human being to be around if I'm not using. The fact of the matter is, in the beginning, when you're recalibrating, I call it recalibrating, when you're going through your sober transition because you really don't know how you are or where you stand. You're really going through a lot of emotions and refiguring out what you prefer, what you like, how you spend your days. Your emotions are all over the place. Sometimes you're trying to self-regulate. You're trying to get recalibrated is what I call it. So, yeah, in the beginning, things might be a little off. You might really need that alone time. Okay. You don't have the bandwidth to give people what they want. Okay. And that's okay. We don't need to worry about what others expect from us. When you make this choice that is only for you, it doesn't matter what other people want from you. And like I said, this may surprise other people. You might show up in a different way and they're like, but they might really value that. I had a lot of people who didn't know that I had issues with substances for years. I'd been teaching yoga for years. And my students would say, gosh, your instruction lately has been so good, so clear, so on point. I don't know what's changed, but something's really working for me. And this would come from various, like different students, different classes, and I knew what it was. Of course, I wasn't one to be like, yeah, I got sober. I eventually, to some very close friends that I taught privately, did come out with all that and explain, okay, so this is why you've noticed this. But generally I just took the compliment. I knew deep down what the difference was. I was coherent. I wasn't teaching high anymore. I was very everything was well thought out, well planned. I mean, I always had put a lot of thought into what I was doing, but the execution could be a little off, all right, because I was a little off. So it's funny how some people will actually value the version that you are sober much more, much more. And I believe that that's what we deserve, is for ourselves, for everyone to be able to show up 100% present, honest, transparent. And where we're not doing any service to either other people. Now, I talked about not people pleasing, but let's just talk about like the mutual respect of humans, of communication, of community. Giving people your authentic self means showing up as you are, without the mask, without the performance, without, being anything other than what you truly are at the base of things. So you're really doing a service by giving them who you are. And it's okay if there's a recalibration period, like I said, where you're not really sure what that is. It's okay. I also want to really let you know that when you make this choice, the choice, that final choice to move into a life of sobriety, the one that really changes you, like within your bones, so you're not waffling and going back and forth. There's no more mental warfare. There's no more negotiating every day. You're just like, done. I'm done. Going forward. When you learn to make that choice, wow, suddenly choosing things in life in general becomes so much easier. So if you've ever been a people pleaser, if you've ever been someone who is like, yeah, I don't know, whatever, I'll just do whatever, you're going to notice the amount of authority and sort of control that you take over in your life. It's very powerful. You have empowered yourself on like the deepest level, and it shines through in everything else and all the other facets of your life. You become a much more authoritative person. It's insane. And that's where confidence really comes from. Confidence isn't something that we put on, that we try on, that we make it, or what's it, fake it till you make it. That's bullshit. That is bullshit. That's a mask. That's a performance. We don't do that anymore. We are transparent. Confidence is actually just moving through an action, knowing who you are, doing it with intention and purpose from the depth of your soul, 100% transparent, honest. That's confidence. It's an action. Okay. So by making such a really deep choice, it just puts you in a different space. And that space makes you a powerhouse. And it's very beautiful and it's very amazing. And I got to say, it's worth it. It's truly worth it. I hope you have your coffee. I have mine. Okay. So to wrap this up, I'm going to say that do not be afraid of losing yourself. Do not cling to the identity, the personality, the persona that you have sort of, nabbed yourself as or that others have pinned you as. I want you to let that go entirely. Like like it's a balloon you're holding, that identity. It's like dragging you around, right? Let that shit go. Wipe the slate clean. Have no expectations of who you are in this new version of you. None. You're going to rediscover yourself. You're not losing yourself. You're rediscovering yourself. And that can be very exciting. That can feel like coming home to yourself. Okay. So let's take the fear out of transitioning into a sober lifestyle. And I think this is one of the big ones to work on. Let me know in the comments if you agree. All right. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, my friends. I'll see you on the next one.